Hey there, it's Katie from Health, Wellness, and Chocolate, and you are listening to the Health, Wellness, and Chocolate podcast. So today I wanted to talk to you about this idea of being addicted to stress. And the reason I thought you might like learning about it is because the holidays are coming up, and it's kind of like it's the most wonderful time of the year, but it's also like the most stressful time of the year. But I wanted to kind of give you a couple tools that you can use to help quiet your brain. Your brain wants to keep you happy and safe, and it will do that by kind of scanning situations and kind of thinking of things and offer it up to you as the truth, or like, this is the worst case scenario, but it's probably going to happen and you're probably going to die, so let's never do that, right? Like, or it's constantly telling you like something's gone wrong. And so your brain will, because it wants to keep you safe, it will look for evidence to prove that something has gone wrong. So it will always kind of be scanning. And let me have you do this. Unless you're driving, close your eyes real quick. And I want you to think of the color red. And now I want you to open your eyes and then look around the room. Just take a second, look around your room. And I want you to kind of notice all the red things that are in your room. Okay, did you see some? Now, what I want you to notice is, did you even count things that may have been like dark purple or maroon also as red? Because if you're anything like me, you're like, I got to get this. And so you'll be looking around and looking for something red, no matter what it is, even if it's not kind of completely red, just a little bit red, just to make sure you found something red, right? Like your brain will always be looking for what it's thinking about. It's going to look for evidence of what you're thinking of. And it's not necessarily true. It's just that your brain is going to look for it because it wants to prove itself right. And so, it's going to play the story of something has gone wrong. And that is going to probably elevate these feelings of anxiety or worry. And what happens is, because you're feeling anxious and you're feeling worried, your brain's like, now I need to look for evidence that's going to justify this emotion for me. So I'm going to look for things that are causing me to worry and that are causing me, all this, because I have to justify it in my head. Like, I have to prove that there's a reason for this and I'm not just crazy. And, it's okay to do that. But if you're not aware you're doing it, you may be sabotaging yourself. And you may be actually working your way towards a stress addiction. And I would have like stress being like a huge umbrella. And then under that, I would have like, worry, anxiety, fear, frustration, like all those things kind of fall under stress. I think stress is kind of like the train that drives the rest of the emotions around. It's kind of like the root cause of it. But, studies have shown that you you can become addicted to stress, even to the detriment of your own health, because it becomes normal to you. So if you consider like an alcoholic, when they drink alcohol, a lot of times they are able to drink a ton more alcohol than someone who has never had a drink before. Their body can just metabolize it and handle it without you noticing as much. The threshold for effect on your outward behavior when you are an alcoholic is much higher than someone who never drinks and they suddenly have a drink. They're going to feel it a lot quicker than someone who's drinking a fifth of vodka a day. It's going to take an alcoholic a lot more alcohol to start to feel the effects of the alcohol. But that doesn't mean that the body isn't being affected by the alcohol. So if and this is just numbers I'm making up. So let's say, a pint of alcohol does X, Y, and Z to your body in a negative way. That same amount in an alcoholic's body will also be negative. Okay. It's not like just because they can handle their liquor more doesn't mean it's not affecting their body in a negative way more. And stress is kind of the same way. You can become addicted to stress and then actually normalize that feeling of stress and just it'll become a normal feeling to you, like feeling overwhelmed, feeling run down, feeling exhausted, feeling like you're just barely holding on, or feeling as if, you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to feel valued or in order to have purpose. Those feelings, even to the detriment of your own health, you may be chasing that because you get that rush of adrenaline. You feel on, you feel purposeful, you feel busy, you feel like your life has meaning if you feel stressed out. Like it becomes normal to you, even though feeling stressed like that all the time isn't normal. Now, you're going to have periods in your life where it's just stressful. Like that's kind of life, There was one time when it was like the water tank in my basement. We had just remodeled our basement, and we finished it so like the kids would have a place to kind of go and hang out, and their friends could come over and they could kind of like disappear, go down in the basement. They could play down there. Their toys could go down there, and it was an awesome experience. And so when we finished the basement, and not even a month later, the kids went down there. We had just gotten home. The kids went down there, and they come running back up, and they're like, there's a flood in the basement. And our water tank had sprung a leak, and it was literally spraying all over. Now, this is like, no matter what, is a stinky situation. However, my daughter was having her graduation party the next day, and we were having easily 70 people over to our house. So the fact, like, my basement is now flooded, and it was 6:00 at night. Okay. So it's 6:00 at night, the day before a big party. The food was ordered from the caterer, that we had spent the whole day cleaning upstairs. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I just like, I didn't know what to do. Like, okay, we have to clean this up. Like that obviously was urgent. We have to stop the leak, which means turning off the water. So, okay, so now we have no water. How am I going to have this many people? It's 6:00 on a Saturday night. Like, and so it was kind of like stress got dialed up, and then we're like, okay, we can do this. We called a friend who knew how to install them. He told us what to get. We ran to Home Depot, got a new water tank. He came over. They took it out. They put a new one in. He's there, with his little solder iron, soldering everything. I had the shop vac. I'm shop vacuuming water, and it was chaotic and stressful. But like we were on, and we were back up with water by like midnight that night. It was like nothing short of a miracle, really, because I thought for sure we were going to lose all the food that we had bought. We were going to lose, just like, okay, what am I going to do about, like, you can't freeze a cake and have it taste good. You're like, what are we going to do with this? We have 70 people coming. Like all these scenarios are running through your head. But we got done, and it was stressful. But like, if you're living at that level of stress all the time, you will make yourself sick, right? Like you're going to wear yourself out. You're going to really cause yourself harm. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people think that is a normal level of stress to have. And I don't know why, but it always comes to mind like a stockbroker, right? Like they constantly are living in this hyper stress state, but like we weren't ever meant to live in this hyper stress state. And I think because our brain is always looking for what could be going wrong or what has gone wrong, and now we have so much at our fingertips to be able to reinforce, yes, something has gone wrong. Like we're constantly being fed this idea that everything is stressful and it's normal to feel this way. And it's like, your stress stimulus is something that you can get hooked on, even if it's negative, because, like not everybody is going to become addicted to stress. And again, like there are seasons that are just more stressful, and that's okay. Like having a new baby is more stressful. We homeschool. So usually the first couple weeks of school before we find our groove is just more stressful. Stress isn't all bad. Like I have inside my classes, I talk about how you can use your stress to leverage the strengths that you have and how you can learn from it and push yourself forward. So it's not necessarily detrimental. However, it could be if it's not kept in check and it's not balanced, and if you are neglecting yourself and your self-care because of stress, right? Because stress stimulates you. It gives you this rush of adrenaline. You have a heightened sensory attention. If you have a lot of responsibilities, then you start to feel important. I know, like you sit on a board, the board of directors for certain things, and it's like, oh, I'm important now, right? Or, you want people to need you. You want to feel valued, and you tie your value up in like what you're doing. And that stress then kind of becomes addictive, right? Like you feel like, things are very important. Things are more grandiose than maybe they are. You may feel like no one else can do this as good as me, and I can't take a day off, or the whole company will fall apart, or what would they do without me, And it's just this idea of like, if you don't take some downtime, you will eventually burn yourself out. But if when you do go to take downtime, you may feel a bit depressed, or you may feel like, well, now what am I going to do? Like now I have no purpose, or I don't know. I think a lot of moms do this when the kids graduate and they're no longer, especially like in the homeschool circles, or even if your kids went to school and they graduate and it's like, okay, now what do I do? I have to reinvent myself. Like that purpose is now fulfilled. And now what do I do? How am I going to be useful or purposeful now, right? And it's just like you get used to this normal feeling of stress. And so when you just feel back to normal again and life is calm again, you almost don't know what to do with yourself. It's like, well, now what? How am I going to handle this? Like a little bit of stress can feel challenging and invigorating and make you feel meaningful and have a purpose and importance. But if you constantly feel this higher and higher level of stress, and you feel pressure, your blood pressure may go up, you may start exhibiting symptoms like anxiety, sleeplessness, nervous overeating, worry, impaired concentration, like all these things. And then to make yourself feel better, you might actually try to add more stress, which like logically doesn't make sense. But if you're addicted to it, it's like, well, I don't feel good, but I know stress does make me feel better. So I'm going to go look for more things to be stressed about. Okay. So you want to start understanding that there's a connection between your lifestyle and these symptoms of feeling like having trouble sleeping, being unable to relax and unwind, being unable to calm down. And I think you can even take this and parallel it to eating. So when you decide, okay, I'm going to stop overeating and I'm just going to nourish my body. And when I no longer feel hunger, I'm going to stop eating. That might feel super weird to you because your normal set point is to stuff yourself till you don't feel well, right? And so to only say, okay, I'm going to dial it back and I'm going to stop eating when I'm satisfied, or right when hunger ceases, that's when I'll stop eating. It's like the stress is very similar in the sense like if you are constantly, overstressed and you decide, okay, I'm going to dial it back and I'm going to try to be more balanced in life, it's probably going to feel weird. You're probably going to be like, oh, this is weird. I feel so rudderless, or I feel so lazy, or, now I lack motivation. Or you might even be pushing against this too, being like, well, if I don't have like a fire under me, there's no way I can get anything done because I'll just sit and watch reels all day or whatever, So like you want to just pay attention between if a high level of stress just feels normal to you, start to recognize with self-compassion, like, hey, this isn't normal. I was not made to live at this level of stress. Now, don't get me wrong. There are going to be seasons in life where stress is going to just be like happening because like that's what's happening right now. But we were not meant to live at that level of stress and be successful. Eventually, things will start to happen. Your health will probably be the first indicator. And a lot of times too, people who feel like they have to constantly be doing, they constantly have to be pushing through and achieving. A lot of times that's kind of in response to like their inner critic that's saying like, you're not good enough, or you have to people please, or you have to, or maybe it's just rooted in low self-worth, or this idea like, unless you're doing something, you're really not valuable. Like your actions are what make you valuable, not that you were created in the image of God and that's why you're valuable, right? Like because you are who you are is what makes you have value, not because of what you do, right? And so, you may run and turn to stress to kind of quiet that inner critic that says if you're not doing, you're not important, or, who would you be? You wouldn't be anybody if you weren't doing all these things, and start to notice like, okay, I have to dial back because this is not sustainable for me and it's hurting me. And if you're an emotional eater and you're constantly feeling stressed, that is, you're sabotaging yourself, right? Like you're setting yourself up. And because you're lacking in self-care, your brain will know, like, hey, I need to keep her alive. And I know she's not like taking time to take care of herself, but I know how to help her feel better. I'll have her go eat something, and that will handle whatever is lacking for her. And so you're like already overwhelmed, already feeling bad. And now your brain's like, go eat something. You're hungry. You should go eat. And then food feels irresistible, right? Like you're overstressed, you're overwhelmed, you're overproductive, you have no time. And then all of a sudden now you're adding on, the brain's like, go eat. You should eat. Really, go ahead. Go have something. You deserve it. You work hard. You need this. You need a break. And like you're only coping thing you know how to do is cope with food, then that's what you go do. And so what I wanted to offer today was, instead of this like black and white, like let's be stressed out so much that it's hurting us, or let's just lay on the couch and binge watch Hallmark movies, is like this middle continuum where, like, you know what? Yeah, take a day or take an afternoon and sit and watch something and relax and enjoy it. And, have that treat at the holiday party and relax and enjoy it. But it doesn't have to be this black and white, like all or nothing, like, no, we're terrible, we're lazy, we're, all these things we'll call ourselves for indulging in an afternoon of relaxation, versus like constantly being on the go and like, oh, I have to accomplish this. And if I can't do it, no one else does it. And I mean, the same goes for me too. Like it's been a busy season for us. And on Saturday, my daughter, who's away at college, was like, hey, do you think, well, she asked a couple days ago prior to Saturday, she's like, hey, do you think we could get together Saturday? I can't come home because there's an open house at my college and I'm giving tours, but could you come visit me? And I was like, you know what? That sounds awesome. And so my husband offered the idea, like, why don't we all go as a family? But a lot of my kids don't like the car ride for that long. And a lot of them, especially the little guys, they'll start crying. And it's really like, ugh. But also, if we all go, then, what are we going to do for like the 5 hours when we're visiting her? Everything will cost, 10x more because there's 10 people going, as opposed to like maybe me and one other kid. So it was just kind of a little bit of a back and forth, like, well, how do we want to do this? And I was like, I could really, my husband's been working a lot, and he's working, I think it's the Bronx. I think he's in the Bronx. And so traffic is super bad for him. And so he's not getting home until after bedtime for some of the kids. And so I've been on like all day, even to the point of putting them to bed. So I have felt like I need a day off too. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take a girls trip with my girls. And we're going to go out there and we'll visit her, and we're just going to have an afternoon. I'll be back by like 8:30, 9 o'clock, because I didn't want to be out late either. And I did. And I can't tell you how thankful I was that I actually did that. I super needed a day of just girl time, of just, I drove, it's like 2 hours from our house. I listened to podcasts on the way. We went out to a really cute cafe for lunch. We went in the cafe. There's, if you can picture like what Magnolia would look like from Fixer Upper, like the Magnolia store and all the beautiful art decorating and home decoration things. And my friend, who is an antiquer, she loves the place where we were. And so I texted her and I was like, okay, where are some can't miss places that we have to go? And so she gave me a list of like stores to go visit. So we did that, and it was so nice. And when I got home, I felt so refreshed, so relaxed. Like my mom heart was full. I got to spend time with my children, like that I don't really get a lot of time with anyway. And, we had like a relaxing lunch. And it wasn't even fancy. Like we just got bowls of chili. It wasn't even epic. But we were at, we went to this adorable cafe, and, the girls got macarons for dessert and lattes, and it was just so nice to sit there. And dessert didn't even call my name when we were at the cafe, because I think I was so full of just happiness, and I felt so relaxed. Like I didn't feel like I needed to get dessert. I didn't even really want it. I was like, no, I'm good. I'll just hang out. Like you guys get whatever you want, but we're cool. And then we went and walked around and looked at beautiful things, and it was like, oh, I needed this. Like my soul needed to go, put the mom hat aside for a little while, go take my girls, and like just go, shopping with them. And like, we didn't even buy anything. Like, it wasn't even like, we didn't even really do, like, we just window shop, but it was just lovely. It was just exactly what I needed. And I came home so refreshed and like, oh, this was awesome. I'm so glad I did this. I got to like, connect with her without a lot of the little kids around kind of climbing on us and really interrupting our conversation. And, we just got to connect and have lunch, and it was exactly what we needed. And I'm glad we did it. And like, so like that is a good example of like some downtime. Like, if you can just find something that will light you up, that might be off the beaten track for you to do, that you like and enjoy, that you can, that can fill you up and kind of recharge you without feeling like you have to do and force and I would just encourage you, like, see what can you dial back in your life, and where can you add in a little bit of this rest that you probably really need, especially this time of year. And just kind of, take a look at your life and like, okay, what are the main stressors and why am I doing them? Is there another thing I could do instead of it? And let me give you an example. So on Fridays, we go to a homeschool co-op, and it's loud, because there's a lot of kids there. There's like 50 or 60 families that go to the homeschool co-op. And so, each family has at least one or two kids. So that's a lot. It's over 100 kids that go. And it's a long day, right? So it starts at 8:45 and it goes till 3. And so when we first started going, I would sign us up for the whole day. So at that point, there were 8 of us all going, and the baby was like a few months old. But we'd leave the house by 8 a.m. and then get to the co-op. And I would schedule myself for the nursery and the preschool room, because I felt like my youngest ones really needed the most support from me, where my teenagers could kind of go and they weren't like needing me to be there for them as much as my younger guys. But that also meant, though, that I was with preschoolers like 6 hours a day. And I also taught a cooking class for the high school kids, but my preschooler would scream and cry, so he'd come with me. And then it was like managing him in a kitchen trying to teach cooking class. It was really stressful and overwhelming, plus like making the lesson plans for the cooking class and buying all the ingredients and all the cleanup after and stuff like that. It was like just a lot of work. And on top of that, then teaching preschool. It was a long day. And when I'd come home, I was like, we'd get home by 4, because we'd have final room cleanups. And so it wasn't just like you just taught, like you also had to clean the room and vacuum and take the garbage out and reset it back to 0 after being there like the whole day. It was a lot of work. And so I was like, this is terrible. And I would dread going on Fridays, because not because it wasn't pleasant, like the people were awesome, but it was just so much work and it would really wipe me out, especially as an introvert. So I was like, okay, how can I tweak this and make this sustainable? Like, this level of stress is not sustainable. I really hate going. And when it gets canceled, I'm really excited that it's canceled, which is like a terrible attitude to have. So I was like, okay, how can I tweak this and make this manageable in my life? And I started looking like, okay, what are the minimums, right? And we talked about this last week. Like, okay, I want the kids to at least have one art class, one music class, and one class that they want to take, like that's interesting, like pottery or sculpture, or, something that they find like that is like something that they would like to take. Can I manage to do that and only be there for 3 class periods instead of 6? And what would that look like for us? And so, going forward after that, that's what we did. And even this year, that's what we're doing. We're there for 3 class periods. The kids all asked if they could stay for lunch because they wanted to be able to eat lunch with their friends and play, which is fine with me. I scheduled myself differently. I scheduled myself, I do a story time for the kids with a snack instead of a cooking class. And then I do a hallway monitor the rest of the time, which is totally awesome. So I'm not like, in the trenches constantly pushing myself, feeling like, well, if it's not hard, then I'm not valued. I kind of took a look at that thought that I was having, like it has to be hard if it's worth doing. And it's like, what if it didn't have to be hard to be worth doing? What if it could be pleasant? How could I make it more pleasant? How can I make this so I'm not used up by the end of the day? How can I do this? What could that look like for me? And I think that is kind of like taking that all or nothing thinking and making it something that's doable for you. And that's where like this lesson can come in for you. So if you are struggling with a lot of stress and like feeling overwhelmed, feeling like food is irresistible because it's the only pleasure you have in your life because everything else is so hard. It's like, think of whatever is causing you the most stress on a continuum, and what can you do to tweak it? Not necessarily eliminate it. Maybe it's something you can't eliminate, but how can you make it easier? Still just as good, but just a little bit easier. If you host a lot of, like, we were just in a private call, and my client said, like, she hosts a lot this time of year. And we're like, okay, well, what can you do to make that easier? Like, do you have to make a 10-course meal? Like, does it have to look like that? Or could it be a pot of chili with some cornbread and a salad? Like, can we call that done? And is that good enough? Like, does it have to be so labor intensive in order for it to be good enough? Can you tweak that stress point to make it doable, and make your life a little bit more doable? So this week, going ahead into the holidays, especially Thanksgiving, like, how can you make your life more doable? How can you make it so it's less stressful and more doable and more, easier for you, but maybe more pleasant too? Because when you start to tweak and identify like what your stressors are, it will ripple into the other areas of your life. And if you're a mom, like, your kids will benefit from this more attentive thought process. So rather than just doing it because you think you have to do everything and do it 100%, like, why don't you can consider them, and you consider yourself and your own needs, and like, okay, how can I make this work for all of us? Maybe it's not going to be perfect, but what can we do right now to make this work for us, and then go with that and see what can happen next. And then you might find like a surprising, like, more relaxed self, and then notice, like, do you feel bad for feeling more relaxed? Like, is this hard for you because you actually feel you're not exhausted by the end of the day? Like, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like maybe you didn't earn your keep then because you weren't so exhausted? Or do you feel like, okay, I'm satisfied. I'm glad we got, this day was accomplished, but it didn't cost me everything I had. I'm not completely used up. You know what I mean? Like, take a look at that and see what's coming up for you once you start tweaking things, and notice, like, oh, wait, do I hold my value in how stressed I feel? Like, do I think if I'm not feeling completely stressed all the time that I have no purpose, right? Start to notice, like, what's coming up for you in these moments, and notice too, like, do you always, are you almost addicted to this constant stress feeling, but that addiction is driving a lot of your hunger, right? And start noticing these things. So start paying attention, especially, I think, going into the holidays. This is a really good exercise for you to be able to do, and some good thought work for you to pay attention and bring up for you. See what comes up, and see if you can tweak some stuff. If you found this helpful, I would love it if you would share it. If you could like the Health, Wellness, and Chocolate podcast and subscribe to it, I know that does help it kind of move up in the ranks, and more people will be able to hear this message. And I appreciate your time and so much that you're here, and just thank you. Thank you for listening. The doors to the Health and Wellness Blueprint will be opening right after Christmas. So you can get in and check it out and see if you want to start it in January. You can do the $1 trial. I'll open the doors back up for that. So I cannot wait to see you. I hope you have a wonderful week. Shoot me an email if you found this helpful too. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. All right. Have an awesome week, you guys. Bye-bye.